Okay, thank you. I'm going to start the meeting. I want to welcome all that are currently present and those that are live streaming this evening. This evening, our invocation is going to be by Pastor Jimmy Pruitt from the Bridge Church of Fredericksburg. Jimmy, if you'll come up to the mic and give us your invocation. And as I said, you have 1 minute. Thank you for coming. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate all of what you are doing. Thank you for serving our community. Let's pray together. Abba, Father, we honor you. We love you. We appreciate even the chance to come together in a free nation, free state, to do the business, to do what it takes. Father, we know issues are complicated. Lord, these men and women are tackling difficult things. So I'm asking, would you grant them grace and favor and wisdom and understanding as they make decisions that impact, as a ripple effect, our community and beyond. We're grateful for our community. We pray for our economic base and for growth, for increase on every level, for prosperity on every level. We ask you to bless. And we ask you, Lord, to encourage each one of them as they serve, as they shoulder and carry government on their shoulders, civil government. So, Lord, bless them, lift them up, encourage them in their business today. Pray for peace, for unity, for understanding, and Father, give them the grace to make decisions that matter and that will better our community. We honor you in it all, and thank you for this opportunity. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. Appreciate it. Have a great evening. We will stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Employee recognitions.
I don't have any employee recognitions.
Shelley, did you have the public comment sheet for me? Sign-up sheet? Ronnie's got it, okay. Now, before we get into that, I'm going to have Kent Myers make an announcement for all of us.
Hey, Mayor and Council and members of the public, I think most of you know that recently the City Council approved changes to the public comment section in their rules of procedure. And the Mayor has requested that I provide comments this evening summarizing these changes. And I know some of you are aware of it, but there may be individuals that are not aware of these changes. First and foremost, we all want to emphasize the fact that the city appreciates the citizen interest in our community. And we want to thank those of you that show up for the City Council meetings to listen to the various issues that are being discussed. But we also want to thank those who offer your input as the City Council deals with important issues facing the city of Fredericksburg. One of the changes that the City Council recently approved is that citizens who want to speak should provide not only their names, but whether or not they live in the city limits. Previously, we requested that citizens provide their address. And this language was revised because the council felt like some people might not feel comfortable giving their address in a public forum on TV and so forth. So we changed that, and the council said that all citizens are welcome to offer their comments whether they live in the city or not, but again, if they would state whether they live in the city when they make their comments. During the recent discussion on public comments, the City Council also approved language to ensure that citizens address the council and not the audience. And one of the reasons that was done is to help the council hear the comments. Sometimes when the speaker faces the audience, it's hard to hear them. And the council was to make sure that the comments are intended for them instead of the public. So we ask you to face the council and address the council. During the recent discussion on public comments, the city council decided to leave the public comments at the beginning of the council meeting. Again, there was a lot of discussion on that, but at the end of the discussion, the council said, let's go ahead and leave those at the beginning of the meeting. So you'll notice every agenda will include the public comment section, and every citizen has the right to speak during this period for up to 3 minutes. And I want to clarify that this is the time that the council has set aside for citizens to speak on both agenda items and non-agenda items. So this is the time that you have an opportunity to speak on both agenda items and non-agenda items. In addition to this opportunity for public comments, there also is oftentimes on the agenda what's called public hearings. These are oftentimes required by state law, for example, with zoning changes, conditional use permit, and those kind of budget hearings. Normally, those are required and stipulated in the state law. And so this provides an additional opportunity for the public to speak. If you have any comments, for example, tonight on the budget or the zoning change, conditional use permit, you have this additional time to speak during those public hearings. Finally, I wanted to note that the council welcomes written comments also, and I know we received one written comment today, and you have the city secretary has requested those comments be submitted to her by 3 o'clock, and the reason that is done is so that she has time to copy those comments and circulate them to the council to make sure the council has those prior to the meeting. So again, this is another opportunity that you have to provide input to the council. So in closing, I think I speak for the mayor and council in thanking you for your interest in our great city. Your comments, questions, ideas, and even constructive criticism are important as the city makes important decisions that impact the safety, welfare, and future growth of our community. So Mayor, hopefully that clarifies what's taken place over the last couple of months and the fact that we do encourage a lot of input in all of our city council meetings. So any questions that the council may have, I'll be glad to respond to those.
Council, any questions on Kent's statements? Okay, thank you. Then we'll move into public comment, and I want to be sure, George, you didn't sign up for anything specific. Are you just doing public comment on number 5? Okay, thank you. And then I want to ask the folks that have signed up for like 7A, that is already going to be for public comment, so you'll have an opportunity to speak during that open public hearings, so you'll have an opportunity to do that. And then 2 of y'all have signed up for item 9B, and so y'all have an opportunity to do that. So we'll start with the public comment, and Tom Marshall, you would be first on section 5. If you would do your name and if you're a city resident, and you'll have 3 minutes. Eric, would you give the little sound when you're down to 1 minute? Just a second, Tom. That's not quite it's not quite as stark as the last time.
Yeah, that should work.
Thank you, Eric. I appreciate that. Okay.
My name's Tom Marshall. I am a city resident. In my quest to get the answer to the question, why are we under a disaster declaration, I have recently talked to my county commissioner and our emergency coordinator. The best answer that I've got from them is because it is the smart thing to do. I call to question just exactly how smart that is for this reason. The emergency declaration, regardless of what level it is granted at, authorizes the use of the COVID vaccine. COVID vaccine was approved for emergency use only. It is not approved by the FDA for general use. So without the emergency declaration, I kind of infer that we would not be able to give people the vaccine. Therefore, why do we want to expose people to a vaccine that has not been proven to be safe and effective? Some people will tell you it is safe, some people it has been tested, but in a year it has not received adequate testing. If anybody doubts that, please talk to me about that. there is nothing safe that we know for sure about the COVID vaccine. We have received recent information that can be verified that there are damages being done by those who have received the vaccine. Other vaccines have been pulled for lesser damages that have been done. Therefore, the manufacturers have also been given immunity from any damages that are created. Now, my question is whether or not that immunity passes on down to our city, to our county, to our state. I don't know that anybody could possibly know the answer to that because we're dealing with an uncharted territory here. A medical treatment approved for emergency use only has never been done before. We don't know what the fallout is going to be. But yet, our city and county feel that it's safe to let this vaccine go forward. Is that really the case? Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Okay, our next person that has signed up would be Mary Lee Marshall, and then the next one after that would be George Studer. So, Mary Lee, if you would give your name and if you're a city resident or not. Thank you.
I'm Mary Lee Marshall. Can you hear me?
Very well, thank you.
Okay. I'm a city resident. I'm speaking tonight on the behalf of a person in this town who has serious health issues. His doctor ordered lab tests done periodically, which had not been done because of the mask policy. He can't wear a mask. Okay? He needed a CAT scan done a few weeks ago because of pain in his abdomen. After a long battle with the hospital, he finally got one Friday. We don't know yet what damage has been done to his health because of these delays. Denying a person access to health care is a crime. I'm wondering if everybody there in front of me knows that. You have not heard the end of this story. There's more coming. Everybody responsible for this situation, this disgusting situation, should be ashamed of yourselves.
Thank you, Mary. Okay, George, and then after that would be Robert Phoenix.
Hi, I'm George Studer. I'm a member of your Fredericksburg community. And I know now, after being here for a year, that it takes at least 3 times for the message to get across. So I'm going to say it kind of a third time, that I believe that because of my background in engineering and what I've done at NASA, is that the right thing after an event is to go back and do a recap of what happened, figure out what we could have done better, what really went on during a significant event. But no matter how many people died or, whether we lost this or that, it just only makes sense to go back and do the lessons learned and then figure out what needs to change after that. So there's 2 big events we've had. We've had this COVID epidemic, and we've done things best we could. We got documents that tell us what we should be doing. Some of it comes down from the state, but the state also says review it. And there are a lot of shells in these emergency management directives that we should follow up on. And the same way with our big freeze. What the community and we owe it to ourselves is to do a recap of what happened and what did we learn from it and how should we change our documents. Some of those documents are the Emergency Management Basic Plan and Recovery Annex, and that was baselined in 2019, July 2019, long before we had our events. And the Hazard Mitigation Plan whether it needs to be changed or not, that's 2018. And the pandemic influenza preparedness plan, which is 2007. I heard from Justin that the state doesn't require it anymore, but I'm not so sure that we don't need something of the influenza type preparedness plan in our own emergency plans. So I've gone through a bunch of shells. I don't want to, bring all the details to you today, but just the basic thing. Can we get an agenda item that says, when are we going to update our emergency plans based on lessons learned? So that was what I asked last time, the schedule for that. Thank you.
Thanks, George. Mr. Phoenix, you're up next.
My name is Robert Phoenix, and I live in the county. Formerly, I lived here in the city of Fredericksburg, and I was living in the city while I was running for city council. And it was an interesting situation because had I won, I would have had to find a new place inside of the city, which would have been quite difficult because I don't know if you're aware of it, but there's not a lot of inventory on the market for rentals and brand new homes. So that said, I had to move outside of the city and into the county. So one of the things that I've been looking into, and I think it's a real issue for the city. I know it's a blasphemy to talk about in some circles, but it's the STRs. And it's not just STRs, but it's STRs as LLCs. These are living liability corporations. These are corporations that are doing business inside the city limits. And these corporations are not limited to being located here in Fredericksburg, but also Houston, Austin, San Antonio, and other states, Utah, Colorado, Florida, Arizona. I know, I've looked them up online. These are businesses that are bidding against homeowners, first-time and second-time homeowners, driving up the price of inventory, the dearth of inventory that we have here in this town. And I feel like it's a pretty significant issue, not just for the present condition of Fredericksburg to maintain the family setting, the family feeling, which made our 4th of July celebration so wonderful and unique, but moving forward and making sure that we have a really solid and stable community as we move into the future. BlackRock is now in the residential real estate game as well, and they're buying homes and they're getting into bidding wars with private owners, and that's aside from the STR situation. So one of the things that I think, and I know this sounds like a blasphemy as well, but if we are having corporations doing businesses or doing business here as an LLC through an STR, then maybe we should think about a corporate tax that should be attached to any corporation that is not based here in Fredericksburg. And as addition to that corporate tax, a savings to the city of Fredericksburg and the people that are homeowners of the city of Fredericksburg could be passed on to those citizens as a result of that corporate tax. I could see it as being a win-win for the city. You would get more revenue. You'd be able to use that to develop more public housing or housing that could be used for lower middle income families. And then, of course, the citizenry of Fredericksburg, well, I'm sure they would like about 50% off their property taxes on the city side of things. So this is one thing that I think we need to talk about. How can we limit the reach of corporations doing businesses as LLCs and the STRs? And how can we make home ownership available to middle income and lower middle income families? Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Appreciate it. Can I believe that's the only folks that had signed up for a public comment under Section 5? So we're going to move on now to Section 6. The following items may be added upon in a single motion. No separate discussion or action or any of these items will be held unless pulled by the request of the member of the City Council. A, consider the approval of the City Council minutes, June 21, 2021 regular meeting with the corrected minutes as presented. Double I, June 22nd, 2021 special meeting. Does any councilman want one of these? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve as presented.
I'll move to approve.
Have a motion by Bobby and a second by Tom.
Mayor, point of order, we need to make a motion to approve the corrected minutes.
Okay.
That was in the presentation by the mayor.
I did indicate, I said, with the corrected minutes as presented.
That's fine, thank you.
Thank you. I want to be sure I covered that because I know last time we missed it. Thank you, Tom. Okay, I have a motion by Bobby and a second by Tom. We'll go to discussion. Jerry, I'm sorry. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, we're going to move on to public hearings. We're going to start with the first one, 7A, hold a public hearing to receive citizen input for the fiscal year 2021-2022 city budget. May I have a motion to go out of regular session into public hearing?
So moved.
Motion by Tom.
Second.
Second by Jerry. Any further discussion? There is none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Okay, we have, this is public comment, and I'm going to call on the people that have signed up for this, but if there's anybody else who would do some public comment, you're more than welcome to get up and speak to this item. First one that had signed up was Mo Sadiq, so if you'd like to come up. And again, if you'll say who you are, Mo, and I'm sure they already know that, but, and if you live in the city or not.
Thank you. I have a few copies. Thank you for your time. My name is Mo Saidi. I am the current chairman of the Gillespie County Republican Party, but I'm here really as a citizen to you.
Excuse me, do you live in the city or the county?
I live in the city.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry about that. And as we all know, this topic of the budget and taxes are very serious among the residents, and as the chairman of the Gillespie County Republican Party, we have gotten several calls from the citizens complaining about their taxes after the appraisal districts came back with the property valuation going up as much as 21 to 25%, so they are really concerned. So what I'm about to tell you is really not Mo for me, because I'm like some of you guys, 65 years old, and my taxes are frozen. So this is really on behalf of the citizens. And we passed a resolution that I worked it out with the city and the county. And in fact, I was Monday night at the FISD, presented the same results, and I intend to do the same thing at the county. The expectation that citizens have with this higher valuation is obviously lower taxes. Okay, and I have been spending a lot of time on these things with the Texas Controller's Office, and some of the terminologies have completely changed. And there's nothing here that probably Laura doesn't know or our city manager doesn't know, but this time we really have to be conscientious of how we approach these taxes and stuff. The effective tax rate is no longer talked about, okay? The rollback rates are no longer talked about. We're talking about new terminologies that are no new revenue tax rates, and we're talking about voter approval tax rates. And then there is also another lingo in there that is called the de minimis tax rate that we got to think about. And then it's also something called unused increment tax rate. So when we're bringing the budget eventually, and we're talking about tax rates, I think we would like to see the tax rate, the proposed tax rate, to be put in the context of no new rate and voter approval, de minimis tax, and all of that, so we know, because if you go above one of these, it automatically triggers an election in November. So the citizens don't have to do anything. The city or the county or FISD, for that matter, are obligated to put that on the tax on the election in November.
Mo, there's no time limit. Is that correct? Okay, I wanted to be sure.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're the first one to speak, so I want to be sure that you had that. Now, if you carry on for an hour or two, I'll probably stop you, Mo, okay?
I know.
Because somebody else wants to talk too, okay? Thanks, Mo.
Okay, so thank you for that. No, I'm gonna conclude here. So I just want to make sure that eventually when we go through this exercise and we're proposing a tax rate, we're really expecting to see these factors taken into account, presented to us, so we know where we are with respect to the voter approved and the threshold of 3.5% and so forth and so on. Now, one of the things I want to mention here is that obviously there is a significant threshold, windfall from the valuation that came through, okay? And obviously, that would indicate that we would have to lower our taxes. The citizens' expectations are that as such. And when I was at FISD Monday night and we talked about these things, it turns out that my general estimation of that and what Lady Minshew was presenting there was pretty much at the same ballpark. And their expectation was, we're expecting up to 7 cents drop in the tax rate. So I don't know what the city is going to have, but if I take the same correlation or something like that, I don't think it's unusual to think that 4 or 5 cents drop in the tax rate is unusual. But I can't make that prediction today, but that's just my gut feel and estimation that I'm going by today. So some of the other things I want to say in here is that the sales, back in, I wasn't here, but back in 1990 or so, the city and the county chose to have the sales taxes to offset some of the property tax rates, right? So that in the current lingo of the law accounts for that you have to remove, deduct the revenue for that to offset some of the property taxes because you get compensated with the sales taxes. So I'm sure you guys take that into account. And then the threshold of 3.5%. Previously we had 8% that would click on the election, but now the maximum revenue threshold. But that goes into an equation that is called voter approved tax rate. And that is an equation that has got to be worked out and then come forward and so forth. So I appreciate your time for that. And this is nothing new that you didn't know. And I have to make a declaration here. I'm not a tax expert. I'm not an attorney. I'm not running for public office. Last time I was here, I was accused of such a thing. But believe me, this is just speaking for those citizens who have called my office. And trust me, they are concerned. They're worried. So I appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Hey, Jerry McCorkle, please come on up, and then Kimberly Lambs, you'll be next. Jerry, you'll give us your name and if you're a city resident.
Yeah, my name is Jerry McCorkle. I've lived here for 20 years in the city, and I'm here to speak about the budget. Per the newspaper, according to what I read, the assessed value of residential properties has gone up on an average of 26% and on commercial at 22%. And based upon that alone, I can't see how we can have a larger budget than we already have on the books. I would like to see it lowered by 3 to 5%. I've read 2 newspaper letters to the editor of people that feel the same way I do. I'm not sure how long I can continue to live in Fredericksburg because of the cost of taxes, the cost of living overall in here. I look at stores on Main Street that are closing down because they can't get any help. There are people here, there's a restaurant being done out there on Milam and Main, and that gentleman there can't get people that's going to work in the restaurant because there's no place for them to live because they can't afford to live here. And I went, along with many others from Fredericksburg, to the Capitol during the last legislative session trying to get the state to lower real estate taxes. We failed because they kept putting it off from one committee to another. It's not on the special session starting tomorrow, and it probably never will be. It's been on the same condition for the last 5 years at least. And I just like to say, let's keep the budget as it is or reduce it by 3 to 5%. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jerry. Okay, Kimberly, you're up, and then would be Jeanette. Name and if you're a citizen, please.
Hi, I'm Kimberly. I do live in town. Okay, so I think as far as the budget goes, I think you should just keep repeating one motto in your heads over and over, which is decrease the budget. Every single time you're looking at a topic, you should think, how can I decrease this? And if we're compromising about it, we should just keep it the same. Let's not go overboard. We cut a lot of stuff after COVID that many of you have several times have pointed out that we didn't really need this and that, actually the city was really responsible with their money, and we had actually plenty of extra money to even pass through the crisis. So if the city is good with its money and we have extra money and we took some extra money from a COVID relief package, maybe we don't need to increase our budget any further. And also in regards to the budget, so there's some talk about possibly hiring an affordable housing coordinator. That is alarming to me, to say the least. I want to know, is that going to end up turning into a department in the future? Is that really the ultimate plan of this? Separately, I would wonder who's actually going to vet and hire this person. Is it going to be somebody that the city manager presents to the council and the council just rubber stamps it?
Kimberly, I appreciate everything you're saying, but could we stick more to the budget rather than
Yes.
personnel? I know it ties into budget. I appreciate that.
Okay, well, my bigger point about why we don't need an affordable housing coordinator is because really the problem here is that we just need more available homes. And in a town of approximately 10,000 residents, there are 1,400 STRs, which are really businesses operating in a home that could be otherwise occupied by a person. And if we figure out of those like 1,400 homes occupied by LLCs, that could potentially house 5,600 people that could be working and paying taxes here and contributing to this economy and its community. So I just want you to keep that in mind and just please stay away from hiring any additional people. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I'd like to respond, Ken, to that. This person's going to be a one-year contract. It's going to be funded by the community. We already have some partner funding on that. Would the city actually contribute to this person? Yes, but this person will be hired for 1 year. It will not be a new department as far as I know. So I wanted to be sure that was clear. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, it won't be a city employee anyway.
Yeah.
It will be an employee of the EDC. That's what they
Contract.
proposed.
Okay, thank you for that. I think it was important for that to be, won't be an employee.
I'm sorry, can I ask a question?
Please do.
Are you saying that the city, it's going to be a city employee that's already a city employee?
No, it's going to be a consultant, a contractor, 1 year. That's our goal. Thank you, Kimberly. That was a good question. Okay, Jeanette, you're up.
Good evening. My name's Jeanette, and I live in Fredericksburg, still.
Yeah,
So,
thank you.
in regards to the budget, I'd like to offer my 2 cents worth. As one of the city's employers, that's the taxpayers who fund the city, I would like to pose a few questions, concerns, and proposals to our council who will be directing the city during the coming budget talks and development. Should the city continue to increase, or rather, our budget and grow the government? Or is it time to exercise some fiscal restraint and develop a budget that does not place a continually increasing tax burden on its people and instead focuses on just the essentials of running the city? This past year, the city deleted unnecessary expenses to adjust for the China virus. Why were there unnecessary expenses in the budget in the first place? Instead of adding back these unnecessary expenses this year, should the city simply be expected to be disciplined to stick with necessary expenses only? Over the years, we, the taxpayers, have been cutting our budgets each year in order to pay the bill of the city. I would propose that it is now time that perhaps we aim to even cut the yearly budget by 5% for the next several years. The yearly $150,000 deficit from the golf course has finally been eliminated. This large added expense was the result of some previous unfortunate and unwise financial decisions. But now, fortunately, the situation has been rectified and is no longer an obligation in our budget. Instead of now planning to possibly spent this money elsewhere, how about giving it back to the taxpayers by cutting this extra money from the budget? The city is also looking, and I know you guys kind of covered this, but I'm just going to read it. The city is looking at adding additional affordable housing coordinator, the $70,000 a year position. Well, you're not going to make it into a department and all that. So, but I was told that you're doing a partnership with the school. So the school's putting in money, the city's putting in money, and basically we're still talking about the same amount of money tax-wise coming out of people's pockets. So my question on this is, as James McDonald had mentioned, which made a lot of sense, is this really, do we really need another outside expert on the, to be paying an outside expert? Is that really the solution? Okay, we've done this before on other things, like the golf course and other things. So the question is, should the city even be taking over this issue? James McDonald pointed out, I thought was very smart, that there's so many incredibly intelligent, creative, problem-solving citizens right here in Fredericksburg. How about allowing the citizens to address and come up with solutions to this issue instead of expecting the city to do so? By the way, okay, I have to cover that. And the lastly, this past year, the city chose to increase the TMRS retirement contributions for city employees from 6% to 7%. This is after they just approved an increase to 6% during the previous year. Does this recent increase, which has placed our city on the hook for additional, I think it's $300,000, I'm not sure, something like that. When I add it up, that's what I came to. I might be wrong. But we're adding this yearly expenditure indefinitely. Does that make good fiscal sense? Is the city being mindful of the taxpayers, many of who do not even have their own retirement funds, like me? And the added burden that this will place upon them. According to the data presented by Polly Rickard, this was not a prudent decision. Even at 6%, Fredericksburg was very much in line with many of the comparable cities around. Why would we be so quick to increase employee retirement that was not out of line to begin with? So I ask that as you do the budget, you might consider, I know you all discussed probably looking at this again before you start your budget talks. That might be a good thing. And I certainly would propose to returning to the really very reasonable 6%. So that's my 2 cents worth, and I hope it makes sense.
Thank you, Janet. Jeanette, thank you. Okay, those are the individuals that had signed up to actually speak to this. Is there anyone else out there who would like to come up, make a comment on this? There being none, then I'll entertain a motion to go out of public hearing.
I move we go out of public hearing back into regular session.
Second.
Motion by Tom and a second by Bobby. Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Laura, do you want to address any of this? No? Okay, thank you. Okay, we're going to go to item 7B. This is also a public hearing that you didn't need to sign up for. Hold a public hearing to receive citizen comments for or against two requests from Josh Lemons for a property located at 508 West Travis Name and if you're a city resident, please.
You have to excuse me, I had surgery Friday and I just got out of the hospital yesterday, so I move a little like our mayor.
I'm faster than that,
My
John.
name is John Klein. I'm the architect for the 112 East Austin LLC. The applicant is out of town. Meeting with DRC, the application was presented as a living unit. The intent is, and you can see that in your packet, is to build a 2,000 square foot, one-story living unit in the central business district, which is also the historic district. In the process, the city staff decided to make the application as a Bnb. I have had conversation with Jason, and the understanding is this may never be a Bnb, but it will certainly be a living unit. Just to make you aware, when the Bnb Ordinance was drafted in 2013, B&Bs are allowed on the second floor, but not on the first. If it's on a one-story or on the first floor, you have to have a conditional use permit, and that's why we're here this evening. If there's any questions, I'll try to answer them. I think Jason is very aware of the project. He can probably answer anything.
Thank you, John. Thank you, John. Anyone else that'd like to speak to this?
Move we go out of public.
And all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, I'm gonna let our director of Jason speak to this when we get to the ordinances and resolutions. So move it on.
Let's go with the one that John's here, 112 Austin there.
Okay,
So
that's
he
fair.
can go on and go.
Sure, I appreciate that, Chair.
Yeah, 9A.
9A, okay.
Yeah, let's
Thank
do
you
that.
for putting me onto that one. Okay, let's move on to 9A then. A, consider the approval of a conditional use permit per section 3510 to construct a first floor bed and breakfast unit in the historical shopping overlay district on the property located at 112 East Austin. That would be Z2109. Jason?
Yes, thank you, Mayor, Council. Yes, so as John mentioned, they are looking at constructing a third structure on this property. If you look at the map, once that gets pulled up, you'll see that this property is zone CBD and a portion of that. This is a day spa up at the front, then there's an office middle building. They'll be looking at adding a third structure. The way the code reads, as John mentioned, this is most likely going to be a long-term living unit, but because of the way our code sits, first floor B&Bs require a CUP. Again, it may not be a B&B at first, but this was kind of the only way staff felt comfortable of making that approval since it didn't fit within the codes. It gave the council a chance to look at this. Based on the location of the back of the property, there's not much ability for that to be.
Excuse me, Jason, could you move the mic closer?
Yes, sorry.
Thank you.
Based on the location of this site, adding a third commercial structure in the back is not ideal. It doesn't lend itself to a commercial use. So when we came and looked at the residential, whether long-term or short-term, we felt that this was a good mixed use for the project, allow them to utilize their vacant land and help activate the city streetscape by providing again a
proposing one building, whether it's going to be a B&B or whether it's going to be a residence. It doesn't matter. It's out of the floodplain. So there are not going to be 8 short-term rentals being built there, are there?
No, sir. This is one unit, one residential unit. The intent, as we understand it, is for the owners of the property to live there. And then after that, they would, if they wanted to go through the short-term rental, they would have to go through that application process.
Okay. Well, there's just been some comment in the community that they're building a complex of 8 short-term rentals back there.
No, I think there was some confusion. We do have an STR complex that's being proposed, but it's a little bit down the road. I think there was some confusion in the addressing. That one is an 8-unit, yes, sir.
Okay.
Could you put the slide of the, that shows the
So that is the ownership parcel. So that is actually the land that they own. Now this is according to the appraisal district data. We don't map individual property lines. We go off of the appraisal district. So when we pull the ownership information, which is what we use to do our notification letters, that is information we have.
John Hitter.
My survey shows the same large portion. Show that.
It does not. Because,
Survey.
okay,
Correct. Staff always errs on the side of caution. We go with the appraisal district since that's what our notification requirements are from.
I went back there and looked at it, John. The property just drops off almost straight down to the creek. So,
Notice there is more floodplain on the north side of the creek than there is on the south side, because there's a high embankment
right,
along the entire portion of Town Creek in this area.
correct. So, would you,
Actually, the high embankment is what our survey is telling us is the peak.
okay, so would your, how close would your building come to that drop
I
off?
have to stay out of the floodplain.
So, but the floodplain, the floodplain is on your property quite a ways.
There's several
Blues.
different FEMA. The FEMA
If we could pull up the site plan.
Pull up the site plan.
Eric, that'll be the next slide on this one. So if you see, I'll try and highlight it with my mouse here. Give me 1 second to find the mouse location. So this is the proposed building. This line right here, this hash line is the approximate 100-year floodplain. That is the top of that embankment. So we're looking at approximately 10 to 15 feet on the corner difference. It'll depend on where that floodplain line.
Back from where it drops off.
Yes, ma'am.
The land itself. Thanks.
And also just for further clarification, floodway you cannot build in without showing a zero net rise. You can build in the 100 year as long as you are 2 feet above that base flood elevation.
Tell me what the first comment you meant.
The floodway.
You used the word "you" or something in there. Initial, ridge line or something. I know you can build in a floodplain. Do your statement again, because you said something that I wasn't.
Oh, no, sorry. You can build in the floodway, but you have to show a zero net rise. That's very difficult.
Zero net, okay, what does zero net rise mean?
Basically, that means if you put something in that area, the water will not rise at any point. So it's very difficult to build in the floodway without doing some type of mitigation. And so the 100-year floodplain, though, that one is the regulatory, where as long as you're 2 feet above that base flood elevation, then you can build there as well.
You can put it on stilts or a
higher slab, yes.
High slab, yeah. Okay. Thank you. Any further questions, concerns?
One other question for Jason. Jason, I don't believe this has gone through Historic Review Board yet, so with that in mind, the council approval tonight would be contingent upon HRB approval, is that correct?
Yes, on the new structure.
Right, I want to make sure the council's aware of that any approval of the CUP would be contingent upon HRB approval.
Okay. There being no further discussion, would someone like to make a motion?
I'd
I move we go out of public hearing back into regular.
No, we're in regular.
We're already in regular.
Yeah. Mayor, I'll move that we approve the conditional use permit for section 3.512 for construction of a first floor bed and breakfast unit in the historic shopping overlay district, subject to approval by the Historic Review Board.
I second that.
Have a motion by Tom and a second by Jerry. Any further discussion? There being none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Yeah, John, if you'd like to leave, you're more than welcome to.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give you a minute since you move so slow.
Yeah, I
And I'm
want
not
to
even
thank John.
I'm not
for
even
all
gonna
he-
put the timer on you, buddy. You just take your time. Take your time, John.
I want to thank you, John, for
Thanks
all
for
you
coming.
do for the
Thanks-
city of
yeah, Thanks for
Fredericksburg.
coming.
too.
Appreciate it.
The guy does a lot for the city of Fredericksburg. He donates a lot of his time and effort and knowledge. Does a great job. Thank you, John.
Okay. 8A. Okay, we're gonna move back to 8A, and Jerry, thank you for having me move that.
Yeah.
8A, consider the approval of the ordinance 2021-12, request to change the land use plan in parks, open space, low-density residential requested by Josh Lemons for property located at 508 West Travis Street. First of two readings, the city council may waive the second reading. Jason?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So if you look up here, the property that is in question is actually two lots. It was recently subdivided. There's the existing home located on Travis, and then there's an additional lot that is off of Sunset. Both properties or the exist.
Is there a slide for this as well?
Yes, sir.
If you don't mind, could you put those up so not only I can see them better, but certainly for the audience?
Yeah, they're coming.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Here we go.
Because remember, I'm colorblind.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Hopefully you can see the mouse here. Let me find where it goes. So this property here where the existing home is located entirely within the open space zoning district. Again, this is based on an older floodplain line, floodway, that was done when the city adopted its zoning districts. Most cities will adopt these as overlay districts. In our instance, this is an actual zoning district which prohibits any uses outside of parks and open space. So if the applicants say the home was to be removed either by on purpose or by act of God, then they would not be able to rebuild without doing a zoning change. The second portion of their property that you see is just to the north. They are actually bisected by the R1 and the open space. During the plating process, we had talked to the applicant and gave them the option of putting a plat note on there stating that the home would have to be built outside of that floodplain line. They didn't really want to add any plat notes. They did want it to identify just looking at changing the zoning. So going forward, staff looked at this and we didn't see any issue with it. It's really just kind of a quirk in our zoning district. That's something we'd like to bring back and give staff a little more flexibility to allow those uses that are adjacent to that, provided that there's no negative impact on the floodplain itself. So part of this request is actually to change the future land use plan with that as well. If you can go to the next slide, Eric, you'll see the same instance here. The future land use plan shows that as park in an open space. It matches the existing open space line, again, with low density residential around it, or R1 in this case. So staff is recommending approval of both requests tonight, and I can answer any specific questions you may have.
So, Jason, if you, I guess, directly west of this property, across the street is the, I guess the Hagers they're they're building a new house and restoring that old historic house. And then directly north of the Hagers.
Excuse me, Jason, could you put the slide? There you go. Thank you.
Then directly north of the Hagers property, which would be opposite the triangle on Mr. Lemon's property. That is the property of Carol Waitola, and that's all in the open space. It's all in the floodplain. So what Mr. Lemons wants to do is basically just build in the same area that all these other people have built their houses in.
Yes, sir. And I believe prior staff had made some interpretations. I don't feel comfortable at this point making those same interpretations, so I'd rather bring that to y'all for an official change. And then, like I said, I'd like to modify the zoning code moving forward to give us a little more flexibility to do that, especially when we're talking, pretty simple scenarios like this where the owner wants to utilize the land as it was intended.
Bobby, question?
No questions?
Kathy?
No questions.
Jerry?
Those are all residential homes there. I mean, that are beside them there and everything. I don't have a problem with it.
Yes, if you look at our city zoning map, and I've actually had some P&Z members comment that they actually never noticed that open space zoning with the color it appears as a creek line on the map, but it is actually its own zoning district with its own land uses. So that'll cross several zoning districts. You'll see a lot of commercial properties that are also in that open space district as well. So I don't foresee this being the last time this comes forward, at least until we make that change.
Is there something that the planning department should we try to correct all these open space issues at one time?
I think from an ease perspective, it would be easier to change the text amendment as far as the land use chart. If we went to rezone all these to their kind of adjacent zonings, then we'd be doing mass mailouts with everybody within 200 feet. So right now, the thought process is to add a land use or some flexibility for staff to assign a land use to what it's adjacent to.
Okay.
Any further questions for Jason? If there is none, I'll entertain a motion, and if we want to include the waiving of the second reading.
Mayor, I will make a motion to approve ordinance 2021-12 for changing land use from parks open space to low density residential, requested at 508 West Travis Street, and to waive the second reading.
Second.
We have a second motion by Tom and a second by Bobby. Any further discussion? There is none. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Moving on to 8B, consider the approval of ordinance 2021-13 request to change the zoning from open space OS to R1 single-family residential requested by Josh Lemons for property located at 508 West Travis Street. First of two readings, the city council may waive the second reading. Jason, you're on again.
Yes, so this is just the next step in that same case. We had to modify the future land use before we could modify the zoning. So if you have another question, I'll be glad to answer it, but same here.
Any questions? I don't hear any. I'll entertain a motion to approve, and if we want to waive the second reading.
I move to approve the ordinance 2021-13. Now to request a zoning change from OS open space to R1 single family and waive the second reading.
Second.
A motion by Jerry and a second by Bob. Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. 8C, we're going to be going to an executive session, so we'll be coming back to 8C after executive session. Moving then on to 9B. Consider, discuss, and take action regarding the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 funding presentation. Krista Wareham.
Mayor, before we turn it over to Krista, let me just give you a little introduction. I think you all are aware that the city of Fredericksburg, like all cities and counties across the country, will receive funding from the federal government over the course of the next year, what's called the American Rescue Fund. And we'll be getting into appropriating the money out of this fund during our budget meetings coming up in the next several weeks. But we wanted to give you this kind of preliminary overview of the funding tonight, because we're starting to get a lot of questions from the public on what the money can be used for. There's a lot of confusion out there, and so we thought we'd just provide this to the council this evening and answer any questions that you might have as kind of introduction to this new funding source. So Krista will give you an overview, and then following her presentation, Eric Whiting Planning will give you a presentation on one possible use of the funding, and that is for broadband improvements. The council, again, this is ultimately a decision that the council will make, but if you are agreeable to that funding that's being proposed, then we would add that to our budget for next year. That would allocate a portion of the funds for broadband improvements. So we've got two parts of this presentation tonight. First one will be Krista, an overview, and then Eric will give you a report on broadband funding. So,
thank you,
Krista.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members.
A little closer, sweetie. Please.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll try this. You hear me okay?
Much better. Thank you. Not only am I colorblind, I can't hear well.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't hear well either.
Just let me know if I start
Thank
to
you.
move away
No,
from
you're
the
doing
mic.
great. You're doing great. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead and move to the next slide, Eric, please. Okay, so as Ken stated, I have been doing, since the law was signed in March, I've been doing some research, and I've come up with this presentation. I'll talk about how much we're expecting to get with our funds, how we can spend the funding, some important dates that we'll have coming up in the future to track what we do spend, and then also I've got some resources that you can go to for more information. So to start with, the act actually is $1.9 trillion. I'm going to be focused this evening on the state and local fiscal assistance, which is $350 billion. 19.5 billion of that 350 is allocated to cities and counties with populations under 50,000, which would include the city of Fredericksburg. Next slide. So, first of all, we won't have to apply for this money. We just had to have a valid Dun and Bradstreet number, as well as an active SAM status, which SAM is, for those of you that don't know, it's a federally owned system for award management. We fit into both of these categories. We have our DUNS number. We do have an active SAM status, and our allocation is going to be $2.5 million. Those funds are going to be distributed through the state of Texas. And as of the time when I presented, or when I came up with this presentation, Texas has not requested the funds yet. And as of today, they have not as well. But we did find out just recently that Texas will be requesting the funds on August the 2nd. Those funds will be allocated through the Texas Department of Emergency Management. That's who the governor, I guess, has picked on who will regulate and who will oversee the allocation and the disbursements. We will receive the funds in two transactions. We'll get the first one most likely in September, and then our other half will come in 2022, about 12 months later. Okay, and then this slide here, we're going to start talking about the eligible uses for the recovery funds. Public health response, replacing any public sector revenue that may have been lost. Water and sewer infrastructure, addressing negative economic impacts. Premium pay for essential workers, and broadband infrastructure. There are a couple of restrictions. Funds may not offset any new tax reductions or delay the imposition of any new tax or tax increase. And also grants cannot be used to support a pension fund. So now I'll just kind of get into some examples for you. I won't go through every one of these, but I'll just mention a few along the way. Under public health activities, we want to talk about vaccination programs, contract tracing, mental health treatment, payroll and benefits for public health workers, and medical expenses, continued care for those suffering from the long-term impacts of COVID-19. And then next is the examples of economic impact activities. That would be assistance to impacted households, small businesses, also hospitality and tourism businesses. Next is examples of premium pay for essential workers. And premium pay is defined as an additional amount up to $13 per hour with a cap of $25,000 per eligible worker. And those workers are, examples would be nursing home staff, hospitals, home care settings, grocery store workers, restaurants, janitors, sanitation workers, and public health and safety. One thing with the essential work and premium pay is it is one of the categories that we can go back. Most of the expenses have to start as of March 3rd of 2021, but with premium pay for essential work, it can start retroactively. Next slide. Okay, now we'll talk about examples of public sector revenue loss. This is a very broad category compared to some of the others. It would cover cybersecurity, health services, environmental remediation, and also have funds for school and educational services. And then water sewer infrastructure. Projects must meet at least one of the following criteria. A few improve drinking water, manage and treat stormwater, and provide relief in case of a natural disaster. And then lastly, eligible infrastructure uses for broadband. And Eric will be following me and he'll have more information on that. So here are some key dates related to the recovery fund. March 3rd is the beginning of the recovery period. So that's actually when we can start looking at our expenses that we had as of that date, and those will be covered if they fall into one of those categories of eligible expenses. March 11th is when the act was signed into law. October 31st will be the deadline for the first quarterly report, and that will be any spend that we've obligated through September 30th. And then every year after that, we'll have to submit our quarterly reports through the September 30th period of the next years. December 31st, 2024, we must have all of our recovery funds obligated. And then by December 31st of 2026, the recovery funds must be spent and the projects must be completed. And then the last slide, this is just a list of resources that I found helpful when I was developing and going through my research. There's also a phone number and an email that you can reach out to with questions. And that's all I have for today. Oh, you're welcome.
I do have a question. Once all these funds become available, how does one know where to go to even try, if they even qualify, where to go to see if they can qualify for these funds?
To see if they can qualify?
Well, you mentioned several categories there, and I was just curious if I were one of those individuals.
Well, I think what we're going to talk about, and what Kent will talk about, is we will be able to put more information out once we receive word from Texas Department of Emergency Management. They'll give us further guidelines. Until the funds are actually received, I think some things may change. This is kind of what's out there right now, but we'll get more information, and there may be grants that we'll have available for individuals or businesses.
This is a work in progress then?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Don't have all the answers because we don't know all the questions.
There's still a lot of moving parts, and like I said, we just found out today, really, that the Texas Department of Emergency Management was going to be overseeing the whole process.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Eric, you're up.
Mayor, Councilman, thank you very much for your time. My name is Eric Wadding with the City of Fredericksburg IT Department. I know that over the past several months that this has been a subject that I know has been brought to y'all's attention, and I need to give some background as to kind of where we've come from and where we are today. It started back about 35, 40 years ago when our current electrical infrastructure started on taking telephone technology, and we started having an increase of a lot of copper and copper lines throughout our city. And let's fast forward till the mid-90s when fiber became a new technology that we took advantage of when for television. And we did have some fiber interlaid into that. And then, of course, then if that came off of that was copper. So we had lots of telephone copper and fiber that really inundated our electrical infrastructure. Just crowded it quite a bit. Also, the mid-90s, the city of Fredericksburg took advantage of a TIF grant. And we were able to leverage that to increase our broadband capability, and we put in around 13 miles over the next 10 to 15 years. And we had 4 entities that took advantage of that from the city, county, Hill Country Memorial Hospital, and of course, FISD. As of today, we have 14 campuses at the city that have been able to take advantage of the broadband. Now that encompasses our internet and any data that's transmitted across that besides just internet. So when we talk about broadband, there's a lot more things that come along with just having a pipeline there besides just what we're, I guess, most accustomed to, which is the internet. Now, over the past several years, if you notice some of these slides, with it being crowded, we've had, along about 2010, we started having quite a bit of public-private entities come into play and have been granted grants and funds from the federal level to bring in and build out broadband. And so they've approached us over these past 10 years, and we have been able to suffice the request because of they have not been able to put this broadband infrastructure or fiber onto our poles. Here's a couple more pictures that I have here where they're just quite crowded. Now, there is an area below the neutral and above, I believe it's in some areas in town, 16 feet, where it's kind of a first come, first served basis. And so most of that area has been taken up. And now the city can operate above that area in the neutral area. And so that is one physical thing that the city in general has found to be a problem. So over the past 6 months, we have come in joined teams with several of the city, county, EDC, and several chamber members, and they have brought to our attention some of the outcries in the community. And what we've looked at doing is the group is focused on a plan to create city-county fiber as an infrastructure to assist the delivery of broadband's needs to the underserved and the unserved. And so over those 6 months, we have found these couple of problems. We have the lack of suitable internet and broadband internet in the city and also out in the county. And then, of course, as you well know, there's a high influx of population on the weekends that really taxes the current broadband infrastructure. And then our cellular coverage, the reliability is quite lacking as well, not only when we have an influx of people, but just in our certain northern and western parts of the county. COVID has definitely increased the concerns for our people and the students that need to work from home. FISD, I've spoke with Dr. Williams, and she has shared quite a very concerning analytics that are around 144 kids that do not have any access to internet at all from the city and then out the county. She did share with me this map here, which shows the 144 locations. And that came from some studies that she had done this past year through COVID when we were trying to assist them, or we had companies, and then also FSD was trying to assist them and get them internet. So this here is our current fiber network. It's just a little over 19 miles. The majority of that services not only our 14 campuses, we do grasp, of course, like I mentioned a while ago, the county and FISD, but we also grab some of our sewer lift stations and our tanks and our water wells. This is what the current broadband committee is looking at doing. Is we're willing to overbuild and utilize the American Rescue Funds to overbuild our current infrastructure, and then complete 4 zones. And as you see there's the 4 zones. Although it's downtown, and then north of town, south, and then west. That would capture all of the city's infrastructures as we currently have, and then what we would do is increase the amount of fiber that we currently have to 4 to 5 times more fiber that we would essentially lease out to these private and public entities that are attempting to come in, that are using federal funds to provide our local citizens with this broadband. This is just an overlay of our current situation and then our proposed. And then we had looked at also some other private entities that currently have fiber infrastructures that run through town. And they come from the South 87 on up to North 87. And then we do have one that has shared with us some information that they have infrastructure out on East 290. So we were looking at potentially, we're working with the county, and they have not committed anything yet, but we have had these conversations with them. We have done some presentations, but haven't done an in-depth presentation with them, so they are aware and are on the committee. So we're looking at potentially looking at building out towards West 290 and North 16. Now, we felt that this, sorry about that. We felt that this was kind of an untouchable, and it wasn't really a reality until we started looking at some of the numbers. And now these numbers here on the presentation only encompass the 4 zones and a couple of branches that would capture some of the city facilities. And this comes in at just under 1.3 million. So this is a tangible figure. And what we could do is potentially, these aren't moving components. Once the seed money is put in play, then we could potentially use this by leasing out this dark fiber to these other entities, AT&T, Verizon, Sprint, and any other public-private entity that's getting funded from the federal government. So, sorry. You mind going back there, Aaron? It's all right, I can finish up. So spending this money, what we would potentially get is, because of the large outcry and that we've had, we're looking at taking some of these funds and putting infrastructure in that is future-proof for us. It's future-proof because of the limitless resource. Fiber is, the future for most and all advancements in technologies. Copper is a lot of the what is embedded here in town has essentially reached its limitations of around 300 megabytes. And I know that some businesses downtown are needing more. We're wanting to overbuild the infrastructure essentially for larger growth, and the city, county, Hill Country Memorial Hospital, and Fredericksburg ISD and our community will be positioned to reduce the unserved and take advantage of advancements for years to come. So that's the end of my presentation. If you guys have any questions.
Eric, you might go back to the map and show them the 4 areas again and emphasize the importance of redundancy that will be created by creating these 4 areas.
Sure.
And what exists now as far as potential interruption of services without any redundancy.
I think it's 2 more slides there. Yeah, just there you go. So as we currently have, we have a hub and spoke right now. So we centralize out of one location, and we just have our main feed lines that come off of that. And I don't know at what year, but it was about 3.5, 4 years ago. We had a semi truck that had come through. I'm sure y'all saw pictures. Took down some of our fiber, and we were down for many, many hours. Creating such an infrastructure like this, we would have essentially 4 zones that if we had a cut like that, we could backfeed that. That not only would be beneficial to the 4 entities that I mentioned a while ago, but any other private public entity that wanted to join forces and utilize that network. So it creates an extremely beneficial and redundancy to the infrastructure itself.
You had also mentioned this morning about, AT&T and Spectrum coming in on 290 East here, and, how you have a backup, more or less a backup system.
Sure.
In case something would happen.
Sure. Yeah, I can touch briefly on that. So currently the city utilizes 2 internet feeds. We have one that comes in on the east side of town, and then we have one that comes in on the west side of town. So if we did have one of those infrastructures that were cut, I know that over the years we've experienced, I think there was a cut out in Comfort one time that put the city down, not just the city, but it put AT&T and a lot of other infrastructures that depended on that. So not only would it help us, but hoping that it would help some of these other private public just to develop a ring and create those redundancies, so that if their customers had any failures, that this would definitely help out on that. So,
Bobby? Tom?
Could you go back to the slide that has the costs on it?
Sure. Yeah. There we go.
Okay, on the breakdown here we're looking at a total cost right now of about $1.3 million.
Yes, sir.
Okay. How much of that is outside of the city of Fredericksburg?
I would say that about 98% of it would be inside the city. That there's only one leg that would go out and capture the golf course.
Okay. So I think when we're talking about broadband, I guess in a global overview, I would hope that the Gillespie County Commissioners Court has an understanding of how important broadband is to our community at large. And I would hope that they would partner with the city in creating this infrastructure, because I think all it's going to do is help economic development, not only within the city limits of the city of Fredericksburg, but also business development in areas outside of the city limits of Fredericksburg. And I would hope that the commissioners are always remember that the 11,000 people that live within the city limits of the city of Fredericksburg also live in Gillespie County.
Yes, sir. So we have been had many conversations with them, and I believe we're making some traction.
Okay.
So hopefully they definitely would entertain the idea. But today we were looking at for a proposal to earmark the 1.3 out of the American Rescue Fund.
Is that out of, what do we have, 2.5? Is that right?
Well, the whole thing.
Yep. So Tom, on a couple other points on the county, one is they're going to be receiving a total of $5 million in American Rescue Plan funds over the next year or so. The other thing I want to point out is one reason we're keeping our costs so low is we're using all our own poles, electric poles, and because it's in the city limits. Once we get in the county, it's Central Texas Electric poles, and if we're going to keep the cost down in the county, then it's going to require a partnership with Central Texas Electric.
Okay.
We did meet with them last week, a couple of officials from Central Texas Electric. We started those discussions. They did not commit to anything, but again, we're hopeful that they will partner with the county on this to keep the county's costs down at the same level as you see ours.
Okay, so we have, this proposal is $1.3 million, and we are receiving a total of 2.5, is that right, in American Rescue?
I'm curious, Kent, whether there's been any consideration of putting this fiber and even other lines underground, using these funds?
Yes, ma'am. So fiber underground, the estimations that we had was around 90,000 a mile. If we utilize our own poles, it's around 50,000 a mile. If we utilize and use our own poles, but have to build a brand new infrastructure, for instance, like out to 290 West, we're looking around $75,000 a mile.
So we have 2.5 million and this is costing 1.3. What are we going to spend the rest of it on?
One recommendation, again, this is all going to be discussed when you get into budget meetings, but we've identified about $600,000 worth of electric generators for our water sites and sewer sites around the city. And so this is an eligible use of American Rescue funds. This I know is a city council priority, so that when we have another outage, we're protected with generators throughout our water and sewer system. So we'll be bringing that forward for your consideration. Total cost about $600,000. That will still leave about $500,000 in rescue plan funds. We've been approached by one nonprofit agency that's requested $100,000, and the council may want to open this up to applications from other agencies. But, again, they're somewhat limited at what we can use it for. The county is particularly limited because they don't have water and sewer systems that the county provides. So if they're going to fund infrastructure, broadband's the only infrastructure the county can do. So again, we're hoping that they will partner and get involved in this. The priority project we've been discussing with the county is extension of broadband from the city to Harper School. Harper School is very underserved. All the area along 290 out there is underserved. If you drive out there, you probably recognize that. We have city employees that live out there that have very poor services. And so that is the highest priority I think we've identified for the county. And I think they're agreeable to that. And that would be about $1 million. Is that your latest estimate on that? For Harper?
The last numbers that we have, because of we essentially would have to build our own pole infrastructure out there, is just a little over 2.5 million. If we could potentially partner with CTEC, and we have, like Kent mentioned, then we could probably get those down around 1.5 to 1.6.
Well, you're also talking about AT&T putting up towers out there and then having legs off of it going to other homes and that out in the county there too.
That is correct, Jerry. I spoke with you this morning in regards to we would love for AT&T, the big providers, for cell phone services, hoping that instead of them spending the $1.5 to $2 million to get out to that area, that they could leverage the potential backbone that we would put in, and instead of building out 15, 20 miles, they would only have to build out 2 or 3 miles.
So the backbone, though, is fiber?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Right. Which is a cable?
Yes, sir.
And so being a partnership, I mean, this is a prime example of a lot of different entities being able to come to the table and create a partnership that would do our global community a lot of help. It would help us. So I'm encouraged that we're getting people sitting at the table, making some, at least discussing it, and we have some funds that would enable us to do this at an earlier time than than we could ever think about doing it if we had to rely solely on local tax monies.
Yeah, that's,
Mayor and council, we do have 2 members of the broadband committee that are here, and actually 3. Garrett's been involved in that, but we have a representative from the chamber at EDC, if you'd like to hear any comments from them this evening.
yeah, comment.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Jay or Tim?
Jay?
Damn, you awake?
I am going to limit you to 3 minutes, though.
I'll go fast. Hi, I'm Jay Mollenkrot, business owner in Fredericksburg, as well as a member of the Chamber Board of Directors. This is a priority for the Chamber, representing the businesses in the community. Obviously, in town is important, critical, but also outside of town and the county is critical to success. Also, some of your comments already are spot on. This is not a plan for a year from now or 2 years from now. This is a 50-year plan. We have to prioritize this for our businesses, for the kids in the community, and for all those entities that support all the hospital as well as the school district. It's critical that we take this community. I think Eric and I have talked a ton, and that it's important that we look at this unique community that we have and continue to drive forward with technology to stay ahead of this. I think we've got great opportunities in this community, and we can create better opportunities for the future with this kind of infrastructure. So very supportive from a business perspective as well as from the chamber perspective on this plan and moving this forward as quick as we can.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Tim, I'm going to give you a minute and a half.
If you're coming up.
All good stuff's already been said.
Well, I know that.
Yeah. Well, I think many of y'all know how passionate I have been about broadband, or the lack thereof in my case, for a long time. And I'm truly excited about this opportunity. I mean, there's a lot of people. There's some here in the audience that are working on this. We don't have control over any of that. I mean, this is an opportunity to get to fiber some places where it's not going to get probably otherwise. That, in my opinion, would accelerate some expansion by existing providers into areas when you've taken away the cost burden of laying fiber to these underserved areas. So the EDC continues to be, it's been on our work plan for a long, long time, talking about broadband, and still is. And the EDC supports this initiative wholeheartedly. So,
thanks, Tim.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
Mayor, I had a thought that in the spirit of how this would improve our community, we should really be looking as a community of extending this out to the Harper area and extending it to the Stonewall area, and we really should go north up into the Willow City area. That would basically cover all of Gillespie County, I guess.
Stonewall's pretty well covered already by the private sector, so Willow City would be the number 2 priority.
And I haven't forgotten the 2 people who have signed up. I wanted you to hear all this presentation first. Maybe it would be helpful. I'm going to start with you, Kimberly. You had signed up for 9B, so please. And I have to time you, so I'm trying to be accurate. Thank you, Kimberly.
Hi, guys. I'll try to be nice about this. All right. So basically, you are talking about money from an American Rescue Plan that came from the American taxpayer, us. It did not come from the government. It came from all of our individual pockets around this bright, great, amazing nation. And the whole reason that you are eligible for it is because it has been decided by, I guess, the country that all of us are in a disaster, no matter where we live or how many people have actually died from COVID or not. We're all in somehow this same state of disaster. And that's the reason that we need a rescue plan. Well, my whole issue with it is we don't need to be rescued because we were never in an emergency, guys. 32 people last year passed away from COVID. That was in 2020. You never started the numbers over for 2021. You just kept counting. And then guess what? Texas, the first state to take off the mask, to never put it on. I'm sorry, to never put it on. And then some people started putting it on, and then one of the first states to have the mandate gone. Right? And we have not had like a surge. It's not a panic. We've got a pretty low vaccination rate too, statewide. I've got to point that out too. And we still don't have crazy surges. There's still not a panic. We're all here. We're all living our lives. We're not in an emergency. We do not need taxpayer money for an emergency that does not exist. So you have to spend this money there are six ways that the government is telling you that you have to spend it. So number one was support public health response. So there was no emergency. There was no extreme loss of life. Our disaster that you declared, it never fit the Texas Constitution definition for a disaster in the first place. The only real emergency was the one inflicted on the people by the government, closing everything down and taking away our God-given rights that you guys are sometimes annoyed we keep complaining about. We just celebrated Independence Day. It's not a complaint. This is God-given to us. We should stand up for it. You should be happy we're standing up for these things. So, okay, number one is like check off the list. 2, replace public sector revenue loss. Again, no emergency, no loss. Water and sewer infrastructure. I like the idea about upgrading for future disasters. I think that's good probably, but that's a small part of this money. Negative economic impacts. The town is packed. It has been packed throughout this. People have made money. People are hiring. If you want a job, you can go get it. Okay, so we don't need that. Premium pay for essential workers. All workers are essential. All businesses are essential. Every one of us is equally essential, so we don't need to worry about increasing some or others' pay or not. And as far as broadband infrastructure, I'm all about providing people internet, but if the government thinks the plan should be about making a plan to virtually school children till the end of time, I don't like where that thinking is going. Thank you.
Thank you, Kimberly. Okay, we got our last speaker for that would be Jeanette. Thank you. And we do have a clock now, Jeanette, so I don't have to time you. But we don't have the bell. I'll do this when you have a minute.
I like that better than the bell.
You like the bell? Well, there's no
Yes.
bell right now. I'm going to do this.
Okay, Thomas Paine said, a long habit of not thinking a thing wrong gives it a superficial appearance of being right. So, I'm looking at this American Rescue Plan, and basically, this kind of sums up, I think, what Kimberly. So, you've heard of dirty money. A lot of people refer to government money as dirty money. When government gives out money, there's always some sort of strings. I know with the school, they're required to do a whole thing on their website and have a whole policy following all this, the way they want you to do COVID, the mask policy, vaccinations, how they're going to actually encourage vaccinations, and how they're going to do quarantines, and if somebody gets COVID, then how they're going to, if people were within 3 feet, they all have to be over here, and all this stuff. And even though that's not required, they are required to put this all down following supposed CDC guidelines. But basically, it's kind of like money to say, we want you to do, what, follow the narrative that we want you to follow. So I know at the school they have strings. I don't know what the strings are here. I've been trying to find out if there's anything like that. But I just know that just on a spiritual level, when you're given a handout, like from the government.
1 minute.
You're kind of going in a certain kind of slavery in a sense. You're giving, it's like a bribe to take control. And so I just think we need to be really mindful of that. And basically, it just comes down to, would you sell your birthright for a bowl of porridge? You know, it's when we're more self-sufficient, which you guys done a great job, I know that the city's in good shape. You were prepared to sail through COVID without any money. And that's great. That's what makes us strong as individuals and as an entity. When we start sitting down and saying, oh, good, money, we take, oh, what, we got to make sure we spend it and all that. The only thing on this plan in particular that I definitely would be against any money is anything to do with the COVID stuff. Because as they've already pretty well articulated, is the problems with it and the problems with the fact that this vaccine has a lot of problems, for one thing, but also I don't want my tax money going to promote something and to propagate things and coerce people into something that they're not getting total informed consent on the information. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeanette. Appreciate it. I don't believe there's any action required on this. Okay. Not at this time. Thank you for asking, though. Appreciate it. We're finished with 9B, so we'll move on to 9C. Consider, discuss, and take action regarding the proposed broadband plan presentation, possibly earmarking funds from the American Relief Fund. Eric?
Just did that.
Oh, we just did that. Oh, yeah, we did B. I'm following Jerry's lead. I had it scratched out.
Mayor, I guess the question here is what kind of action are we supposed to take? Is it, so
it's all be part of the budget discussion, and you'll take action.
Okay, no action.
No action. Thank you for that. Okay, well, I'm getting back on track. City manager's report. Hey.
Mayor, Council, my report tonight is brief. I have 3 items to report on. First off, I know the council is aware, but I wanted the community to be aware that we have a new municipal court judge. Last Thursday, the city council had a special meeting, and during that meeting, they approved the hiring of Shelley Becker as our new municipal court judge. She was formerly our prosecutor and is moving into the judge position. She started work last Friday. In fact, the mayor and I were there when she was sworn in by the current judge on Friday morning. So she started work Friday. She's on board. We're very excited to have Shelley Becker, and I think we sent the newspaper the information and along with her picture of the swearing in ceremony. So please help us in welcoming Shelley Becker as our new judge. Good.
And I'll tell you, she said, I do, and she went right back in her office and started working. So she did start Friday. No question.
Okay, a lot of discussion this time of year, of course, on our budget. So to update you and the council and the community on our budget, we have our first budget work session scheduled for July 14th, next week on Wednesday. That'll be at 4 o'clock at the Cardinal Room at the golf course. That will be focused on the general fund, and we'll send the council some information prior to that meeting, some preliminary budget numbers for the general fund. So we'll focus on that on July 14th. Then we will be meeting with the county commissioners, joint meeting with the city council on August 2nd. We were talking about the possibility of changing that meeting, but we ran into vacation schedules, and so we need to stay with that date as originally proposed on Monday, August 2nd. That will be in the fire training room at City Hall, starting at 8:30. So that'll be a joint meeting. There'll be a lot of things to talk about with the county this year in terms of emergency management, EMS, health services, and so forth. So that will be, I'm sure, a very interesting discussion with the county. And then on August 4th, we'll be coming back to the council for another work session again back at the Cardinal Room at 4 o'clock to talk about the enterprise fund budgets. We'll also talk about the American Rescue Funds. And at that meeting, we'll start talking about property taxes. because the reason is we don't actually get our certified roll till the end of July, so we won't be able to talk about property taxes much at the July 4th, next week's work session, because we don't know what our certified values are going to be. And so earlier this evening, there was comments made about tax values going up 20 to 24%. And that, of course, is in the newspaper, but I want to emphasize the fact that those are very preliminary numbers. There's been a lot of appeals that have come forward to the appraisal board, so that value number will be coming way down before it's certified by the appraisal district at the end of July. But anyway, on August 4th, we'll be talking about enterprise funds, property taxes, American Rescue Funds, assorted other topics. And then we have a final budget work session scheduled on Wednesday, August 11th. That's basically to bring everything together, see if the council has any other comments, changes to make to the budget before we work towards finalizing that. So 4 budget meetings over the next month or so, and so this is a very busy time of year for us.
Did you mention, do we have a time for the 11th and location?
No, we don't. I'd suggest we stay at 4 o'clock if that's okay at the Cardinal Room. Yeah, as long as we're, yeah. Yeah. I'll confirm that it's available with Chris, but yeah, I'd suggest we just stay where we are if that's okay. And that room, like, you know, we're going to again rearrange the table there to where the council faces the audience, and we have good meeting room there. Okay, any other questions on that? Okay, the other major activity that's occupying a lot of our time this time of year, of course, is our STRs. We got Jason back in town. Welcome, Jason. And so he was kind of wondering why, you know, if he should have come back from Hawaii. He was in Hawaii, so he had a great vacation. But he's back tackling the short-term rental issues. And so next Monday at the University Center, we'll have a council work session starting at 5:30 to talk about short-term rentals. And again, the council will be getting a packet of information prior to that meeting, including 5:30. Yes, sir. At the University Center. This coming Monday, July 12th.
Is 30 minutes long enough?
30. Yes.
That's also a council meeting.
But you put 30 to 7:30. It's going to be way longer.
Okay. Yeah, 5:30 is good.
Okay. So again, that will be, all these are public meetings, and if you have questions, Jerry?
No, I just want to make sure I got the right thing.
Okay. Okay, any questions on any of the items on the city manager's report?
No.
Okay.
There being none. Okay, items for future agenda?
Mayor and council, in addition to the numerous special meetings we have scheduled next month or so, we have a pretty lengthy agenda so far for the next regular meeting on July 19th. Again, that will be back here at the Law Enforcement Center. On page 71 of your agenda packet is a listing of the preliminary agenda items. One of the most important items will be a consideration of the project on Friendship Oaks, Mark Sparrow. That's going to Planning Commission this week to change some of the zoning on that property, and so that will be coming forward to the council for your consideration at your next meeting. So that'll be a pretty involved discussion. The other major item coming forward to you is the amendment to our historic district ordinance. Anna and Daniel have been working very diligently on that, and so that will be coming forward for your consideration. And more than likely, you'll want to do 2 readings on that, I would guess, and so give plenty of opportunity for additional public input. And then, of course, we can eliminate the Josh Lemons items. You approved those tonight. And we will probably not have the Texas Rangers proposal, but we will have the presentation on the splash pad at our next council meeting. This is proposed at Town Pool. And again, we're trying to get the word out, encourage citizens to show up and offer their comments and questions about the splash pad being created at Town Pool. We also will have a bid award for the Boot Ranch lift station probably on your agenda. So a few major items coming up for your July 19th meeting. Any questions on any of those items? Okay, and then the next regular meeting on August 2nd. So far, we have a pretty light agenda, but I'm sure we'll have more items to add to that as we get closer to that meeting date. Any questions at this time on future agenda items?
None.
That's all I have, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Okay, council reports. And I'm going to start with the young lady on our team, Kathy. Your council comments. No comment. That was your comment. Good. Tom?
I attended the FISD bond presentation meeting last week. They are working on it. Huckabee is finalizing their bond, and it looks like the board is aiming to hold a bond election, to call a bond election for November.
Thank you, Tom. Bobby?
I'd just like to say that I was excited to see Uncle Sam at the parade the other day, and very excited to see the turnout, and I think people are glad to be back out, and the parade was a whole lot of fun. So that's it.
Okay, thank you. Jerry?
No, I didn't have any meetings I went to, but I did bring some more booklets on the Marketplace redevelopment plan and program that we got set up. And if anybody's interested in helping find people to assist in getting funds to develop the pavers or the playground is pretty well taken care of, but then for the Security State drive-through and get the restrooms and all that built, there's still more money to be raised, and anybody's welcome. I got the books here. If you want to donate, we do have a purchase program plan, what do they call it? What? A pledge, yeah, a pledge, like a 3-year pledge, if you want to do a 3-year pledge. So anybody interested, you can find me on the internet with our phone number at the City Hall, and if you'd like to ask more questions about it, please do so. I think it's a great project, and I think everybody enjoy it. And one other thing is, whether you believe in the COVID or not, there have been over 600,000 people die from the disease. There is a variant coming out. You believe it or not. I don't know who made the noise, but anyway, whether you take it or not, that's up to you. I took it, and if you don't take it and you get it, I've talked to people who have had it and they've been laid up in the hospital. They thought they were dead. Over 600,000 have died. If that's what you want to do, go right ahead. I will never change my mind. I believe the vaccine is safe and effective, and I will always take it. Thank you. I am done.
Thank you.
Jerry, on a lighter note, did you actually put some contribution envelopes in these this time?
What?
Did you put contribution envelopes in there? To make it easier for people to give away their money.
I'll have some pledge sheet if you want. I can give you write my phone number on here. If you want to call me, I can get you a pledge sheet.
But no self-addressed stamped envelopes.
No.
Okay, you can bring the stamps and the envelope. I'll self-address them, okay?
Yeah. Okay, guys.
You sound like my wife. Jeez.
Okay, we've had enough good advertising there. I'm not going to name names or organizations, but I'll piggyback on Bobby. What a great parade. I've been in it with my grandchildren as Uncle Sam for many, many years. And if the crowd was any larger, I'm not going to be able to tell you that I've seen a larger crowd. I've never seen flag waving, smiles on people's faces as everybody was enjoying the parade. Of course, the fireworks display was outstanding. Another opportunity. We were really blessed. It rained that morning. The parade went on without rain. It rained that afternoon, and the fireworks went off without rain. So I believe we had a higher power watching out, bringing our community back for the great celebration of the 4th of July. So thank you for all those people who worked on it, organizations that worked on it, the press coverage, everybody. What a way to start off the month of July, and hopefully we'll continue that throughout the rest of the year with wonderful celebrations in our community. And of course, rain. Thank God for rain. With that,
one other thing, excuse me. I can't stress it enough about John Klein. The guy is a tremendous guy. He has put in years and years of volunteer work for the city on the market plots and a lot of these projects around town. I just can't express enough. He's been very sick, and if you know him, I mean, he'll do anything he can for the city of Fredericksburg. So there's a deep appreciation for him.
Thank you, Jerry. I concur. Moving on to executive session, the city council will recess in its open meeting and reconvene in executive session pursuant to Texas Government Code Sections 551.072, deliberation regarding real property, 551.7071, consultation with attorney, and 551.704, personal matters. A, consider and discuss the city of Fredericksburg, Texas versus Archway LLC and Fiesta River RV LLC pending in the 26th District Court, Section 551071. And B, consider and discuss East 290 Owners Coalition versus the City of Fredericksburg, Texas pending in the 216th District Court, Section 551071. And C, consider and discuss the purchase and exchange lease of value real property located in the vicinity of the intersection of Bassey Lane and US 290 West in Gillespie County, Section 551.072. And last, D, consider and discuss personal issues regarding the search for the appointment of the city boards and commission members, Section 551074. I'll entertain a motion to go from regular session to executive session.
So moved.
Have a motion by Bobby, second by Tom. Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
5-minute recess. Are we live streaming? Okay. Oh, look at us.
We're back in open meeting, and the council's ready to address item 8C.
8C, and I'm going to repeat that. Consider the approval of Resolution 2021-08R, appointing individuals to fill vacancies and reappointments and membership to the City and Planning and Zoning and the Historic Review Board and Zoning Board of Adjustments. Okay, discussion. Kathy, I'll start with you.
Can we have a clarification from Jason as to what appointments for each board? What positions on each board?
Thank you.
So we start with planning and zoning.
So planning and zoning, we will have 2 positions open. When we go to ZBA, we have 1 position officially open. We're losing our chairman. And for HRB, technically we have 2 positions open now, but we will be making a change to the membership as part of our future ordinance amendment. So we technically have 1 that we can fill and leave the other vacant.
So do you want to start with planning and zoning?
The candidates.
I would move on the Historic Review Board to reappoint Mr. Jackson and Mr. Salinas, and also to approve Michael McCree?
Yeah.
For the Historic Review. Does that leave 1 open?
So that would fill them.
That would fill them up.
According to the new ordinance, it will be before you.
I'll second that, Jerry.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion by Jerry and a second by Tom.
Musselman, the bald guy.
And any further discussion on that? There being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, there is none, motion carries 5-0.
Okay, members for, who are the applicants for planning and zoning?
We have 4 applicants for P&Z. Those are a new member that was not as part of the packet. I believe his name was Mr.
Pearson?
Emily Graham.
Yes, Graham Pearson. Then we had Polly Rickard was asking for reapproval. And then a new, sorry, let me pull these up. Emily Kirchner. And the last gentleman was...
There was only 2 positions, you got 3 people there. Well, you had, McAfee, Jim.
Yes.
Jim McAfee.
And Travis maybe.
And Travis.
Wouldn't mind being considered.
Right.
Go ahead, Kathy.
Ready? I would make a motion that we appoint Emily Kirshner to the Planning and Zoning Commission.
I'll second that one.
Okay, we have a motion by Kathy and a second by Jerry on Ms. Gertner. Any further discussion on this one?
We need 2 spots, so we can do them individually?
I think so, since we just have one motion.
Okay.
We'll clear this one and then we'll move on to the next one.
Correct.
And there being no further discussion, all those in favor indicate by aye.
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 Opposed? There is none. Motion carries 5-0. Okay, we have two candidates remaining. Holly Richter and Graham Pearson, both highly qualified for this position.
I'd move to accept Polly Richter to planning and zoning.
A second.
A motion by Bobby and a second by Kathy. Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There is none. Oh, wait, okay, 4 ayes, 1 opposed. Was that Jerry?
Yes.
Yeah, 1 opposed, Jerry. Motion carries 4-1.
That's a hard one because I think Graham and Polly were supposed to be really good, so.
They're both good qualified
Very
candidates.
qualified, so.
Yep.
I'll stick with Graham. Polly's great too.
Anyone else?
ARB, do we need to do anything there?
Before that, on P and Z, there's 4 members that have terms that are expiring. We need to be reappointed. We need to reappoint. Or replacements made if you're not going to reappoint. If you look on page 31 in the second paragraph, the first sentence.
Thank you.
Jim, Cynthia, Travis, and Marcus.
No, I'm planning and zoning.
No, planning and zoning.
Janice Thomas.
That's what we just did.
But we have to reappoint these.
Oh, you're gonna have to reappoint them.
Steve, Jill, and Daryl.
You appointed replacements for Brenda Segner and Chris Kyler, but you need the reappointment of the expiring terms.
So, Mayor, I'll make a motion that we are, to the Planning and Zoning Commission, we reappoint Janice Making, Steve Thomas, Jill Tabor, and Daryl Whitworth.
Second.
Okay, motion by Tom and a second by Bobby. Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? There is none, motion carries 5-0. Any others?
Board of Adjustments.
Board of Adjustments.
Board of Adjustment.
Okay,
I move that we reappoint Jim McAfee, Cynthia Scroggins, Travis Neal, Marcus Badrine.
okay, a motion by Bobby and a second by Kathy. Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Same sign opposed, there is none, motion carries 5-0. Okay.
So, but they still lack one person, right?
Right.
So I'm wondering if we could nominate Graham and see if he would accept that. And if he doesn't, then we have to go.
Can ask him. See if he will.
Could we make a motion to appoint him and then he'd either rescind or
You could appoint somebody and he could refuse to accept the appointment.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to appoint Graham Pearson to the Board of Adjustment.
I'll second that.
A motion by Kathy and a second by Tom. Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Aye. There is none. Thank you. Motion carries 5-0. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So made.
Motion by Bobby, second by Gary. I'd like to talk about that.
They're so fast.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? There is none. Ladies and gentlemen that are on live stream, thank you very much. And all that came this evening, thank you. All have a great evening, and thank you for all you do for our city.